That's what I'm doing.
Pretend you're going that way. Get down. But he's going after them.
The other argument.
You're the X's. You're the
And the fire marshal would always say, stay behind the wheel. Make sure he goes out. And I'd say, then I was following him at the red light.
Good evening, everyone. We're back for the Committee of the Whole meeting. At this time, to establish a quorum, I ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Hazek.
Here.
Shea.
Here.
Leader. Rose.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. This meeting is regarding budget. Tonight we have with us the library and the museum. And before I go to City Manager Borchert, is there anybody that would like to speak, first of all, for public comment at this time? Anybody? Okay. City Manager Borchert, take it away, sir.
Well, again, as scheduled, library are here along with the museum as the outside presenters for the City Council. We'd like to do them first. Marilyn Boria is here and President Susan Sadowski, and I'll turn it over to them for their presentation and then your questions.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening. It's a pleasure to meet with you tonight to review our budget. And as Tom said, I'm Sue Sadowski, President of the Library Board of Trustees, and with me tonight I have a few fellow board members that have hung around to wait for our meeting. I have John Morrissey, Rose Walsh, and Linda Wheaton. And as we said, Marilyn Boria, the library director, is here with me as well. Before we answer any of your questions, I'd like to briefly highlight some of the ways that the library has enriched our community this past fiscal year. And I'm sure you already know that the library is a very, very busy place if you've been over there. And in the first 10 months of this past fiscal year, the staff has welcomed an average of 45,000 patrons in the library every month. By April 30th, these visitors will have checked out an average of 1.5 million items for the past fiscal year to help them with their schoolwork, business needs, and personal interests. This is 5 times the national average for per capita circulation for public libraries. During the past 10 months, the library has educated and entertained thousands of children and adults with over 700 programs. Our meeting rooms were used over 200 times for community groups which enrich the life and contribute so much to the quality of life in our city. During the day, our daytimes, our story times for preschoolers are filled to capacity with children, parents, and caregivers learning the skills that prepare their children for a lifetime of reading and learning. After school, children from the community use the library as a homework center. Last summer, 5,000 children improved their reading skills through participation in our summer reading clubs. This is an all-time high for us. We are particularly grateful for the Friends of the Library and the many businesses in town for the support of our summer reading clubs. Recently, we converted the quiet study room in the children's area into a children's learning garden using a grant from the Friends of the Library. This new space was created to foster literacy and instill a love of reading within our preschoolers and get them ready for school. It has become one of our most visited areas of the library. Our focus for adults this past year has been on helping people during our difficult economic times. Our staff assists residents using library computers to search for job listings, create resumes, complete online job applications. Our resume writing and interview books, as well as our test preparation materials, are heavily used by job seekers. In addition, we offer career counseling sessions and programs on how to find a job. Elmhurst Reads The Civil War is our signature program this year. It's our 3rd annual Elmhurst Reads program. It commemorates the 150th anniversary of the beginning of the American Civil War. It features more than 30 events at the library, along with exhibits, activities, and presentations sponsored by our community partners all throughout the city. A special Elmhurst Reads edition of our newsletter, Fine Print, was mailed to all the homes in February. I hope you'll be able to join us for some of those interesting programs. Tomorrow is an auspicious day. It marks the library's 95th birthday. On March 22nd, 1916, the library opened for business. The library board leased one room in the First National Bank building at the corner of Park and York Road for $15 a month and spent $400 to buy books. They had a donation of $75 from the Elmhurst Women's Club, and a local carpenter built $75 worth of bookcases. An oak table, 10 chairs, and a card catalog cost another $75. Librarian Catherine Brettenbach was hired, and a plaque was commissioned for the door. It read, "Public Library." From the beginning, the library board has aimed for excellence, and that tradition continues today. In 2010, Hennen's American Public Library Rating Index rated our library 6th nationally and 1st in Illinois in its population category. This marks the 6th year in a row that we have received a top 10 ranking on the Hapler Index. In addition, Elmhurst Library has joined the ranks of America's Star Libraries, receiving 3 out of 5 stars in a national ranking in Library Journal's Annual Review of Public Libraries. This year, 7,407 libraries were rated, and only 258 qualified as star libraries. Less than 3% of Illinois libraries received a star. Both of these achievements are a reflection of the community support that makes it all possible. Without public interest and generosity, the Elmhurst Public Library might still be in one room with 1 table, 10 chairs, and 800 books. Thank you for helping us make the library a successful resource for our community. On behalf of the entire board, I would like to thank the mayor and the entire city council, as well as city manager and the rest of the city staff who help us on a daily basis. We could not do this all without your support. Before you tonight, you have our budget, which includes not only our operating expenses, but also the funds needed for repayment of our building bonds. Our levy, which you approved last November, increased less than 1%, which covers the increase in our bond payment. We did not raise the operating levy. We welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Questions, discussion. Chairman Hipskin.
I have a question for Marilyn. Is this the last time we're going to see you?
No, I'm still living now.
In this capacity.
It's going to be lonely sitting here next time. I hope they'll replace me too.
I want to thank you for your years of service and for making our library the #1 ranked library in Illinois, 6th nationally. Those are amazing statistics, and it's something that I know I'm proud of and the city council is very proud of, and you've just done a wonderful job, and thank you very much.
Alderman Levin.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. It's very informative. And I just have a couple questions of things that maybe because I'm newer up here, but there's a capital outlay of, well, that's a good question, 190.
And line number, please.
And it's at the bottom of the page, 210, 8070, 452.80-98. Sounds like the Dewey Decimal System, but it's not. Can you explain what that $442,000 is going to be used for?
Yeah, well, not the whole $442,000. Well, a chunk of that, approximately $375,000, is going to be used to replace our RFID system, which is the tags that are in all of the materials that are checked out. It's a security system and an inventory control system. We installed that system, we contracted for it and began installing it shortly after the referendum, which was 10 years ago. And it is now out of date. And in fact, the tags that we used at the time that we bought the system were proprietary. They no longer, it was before the ISO standards. So it's very difficult to get the tags now. So we need to upgrade and update our system. We have the money saved in our capital replacement fund. This was not part of the levy. We have a capital replacement fund to pay for major expenditures. So that will be a transfer from the capital expenditure fund to the operating budget this year. And that's why it's a one-time occurrence, because it will be a one-time expenditure.
All right. Thank you very much, and I also wanted to express my gratitude for your years of service.
You're welcome.
Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, not to pile on, but Marilyn, thank you for all your years of service. Having been on the library board for 6 years with you, it was an honor to serve with you, and you did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. I have to say, I've been so fortunate to have come to this community 27 years ago, to be hired by the board. You know, we say about Elmhurst, it's a place to live and work and raise a family, and that's exactly what I've done here for 27 years. So I am the person who should be grateful for the opportunity that I've had to be here. So thank you. And thank you for all your support over the years. We wouldn't have had the new library without the city council and the mayor. The city staff helps us, as Sue said, every single day. It's a wonderful relationship that works really well. So I hope when Tom and I are gone that it will keep going.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else? Questions, discussion? Anybody? Okay. Well done. Thank you, Marilyn. As usual, you've done a great job, and I will miss you as mayor. But you will, I know you're not going anywhere, so we'll be seeing you around town, and look forward to working with the next successor. And thank you to the board, the trustees that serve on this this fine board of directors that volunteer their time to make great decisions on behalf of our young children as well as our seniors and everybody that enjoys the library. So, thank you. Next up, City Manager Borchert.
Yeah, the Historical Museum is up next, and Brian Berghager's here with President Tom Klein. Mr. Berghager has some handouts, and I think Mr. Klein has a presentation.
We've got screens. Tom Klein, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you out here today.
Okay. So Mr. Berghager is passing out some handouts, namely my presentation, so since you guys can't see it, as well as a little bit about the museum. So how we're going to do this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the foundation, and then we'll have Brian talk with some comments about the actual museum there. So first off, for those of you who don't know me, I'd like to introduce myself. Also folks on TV, I'm the president of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, Tom Klein, as you see up there. Behind me, if I could ask to stand up, the members of our board who have stuck around as well as been able to attend, if they could stand up here. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance tonight. So, for this evening, I wanted to talk first off about what our board is. And our board, the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, is to enhance what's going on with the Elmhurst Historical Museum, the Churchville Schoolhouse local history. It's very similar to what District 205 Foundation does with District 205, as well as what the People for Elmhurst Parks do associated with the Elmhurst Park District. Now, as part of that, I wanted to mention a little bit about our mission statement, and I'll tie that into the city's mission statement in a second here. In that our mission statement is to stimulate broad-based support for local history, for the Elmhurst Historical Museum, Churchville Schoolhouse. How do we do that? Through advocacy, education, and fundraising. Those are the three things that we do. And last year there was a lot of discussion, and let's go on to the next page here. There was a lot of discussion about the importance and the value associated with the Historical Museum here in Elmhurst. And so I thought what I'd do this year is spend a little bit of time looking at the city's mission statement and see how we tie into that. How do we support that? Because if we believe this is the mission statement of the city, which we all agree it is, and you guys all know that, we better be doing the same things in order to make sure that that's what the citizens of Elmhurst are getting. So you see on the left there a number of words. I didn't put the whole mission statement up there, but what I did do is I pulled out some very key words that I thought were important and representative of what we as Elmhurst are. And then I go on the right-hand side there and I look at it and I say responsive. Okay, how are we being responsive here? namely listening to community needs. If we don't listen to community needs, it's kind of hard to be responsive here. How do we do that? Well, we got to talk with District 205. That's part of our constituency. We got to talk to the Park District. Also, we got to listen to an awful lot of individuals. Do we listen to every individual? No. But we hope to listen to every individual if they want to provide comments to us in helping bring history to life here in Elmhurst. Superior. We're never going to achieve perfection, right? But we're always looking for excellence here. And so that's the word superior is really key in terms of the mission statement of the city. And how do we do that? We have a new website that we didn't have previously so that we can outreach more into the city there. We have increased attendance for exhibits and programs over the last year, more than we had previously, and I know that's been a discussion point in the past there. And hopefully you've seen, we certainly feel it on the board, we feel increased momentum here to achieve that excellence, right? Not that perfection, but achieve that excellence that we're eventually going to get to and keep on sustaining as we go forward here. Environment and respect. Elmhurst is a diverse community, right? And so we need to address the various parts of the community that are out there, whether it's west and east, whether it's south and north, whether it's parents who have kids in school or parents who don't have kids in school, whether it's parents who have kids in District 205 schools or whether they have kids who are not in District 205 schools. We want to address all of those different needs here. Lastly, our next here, enhance the quality of life, the cultural and educational aspects. So the saying is, all politics is local, right? I'm not going to tell you that all history is local, because it's not. But there's an important component to history that is local. It's not 20 miles down 290 in the city of Chicago. It's here in Elmhurst, and it's part of what we're doing all here. And then lastly, community. We're a community. In this quote here from one of our members down at the bottom there, this museum is a cultural gem in Elmhurst and enriches the town. I mean, that says it all in terms of community and what we're trying to do here. So let's go to the next page here and talk through. So what do we do as part of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation in conjunction with the city, the Elmhurst Historical Museum in 2010? So we had a brand new membership program, and to set a little perspective here, we have over 180 members in less than 6 months of our membership program. It's something that we as a foundation have been talking about, dreaming about for over 20 years. We finally got it done. And what's more important about it is that there's 180 people already. To put it in perspective, some of these other membership organizations, they only have a few hundred after a number of years. Now we're setting ourselves a goal to continue to increase membership this year to show the community how important it is, as well as give them an opportunity to vote with their membership on how important history is here. We had the schoolhouse reopening that all of you contributed to, all of us as part of the city contributed to here. We had our vintage baseball game. Over 500 people showed up last year at Barron's Park in July to watch us play, and it was a pretty hot day, right? And we had Alderman Kennedy, Alderman York, Mayor DeCiani all played. Fortunately, none of them pulled any hamstrings, right? We had a few people who pulled hamstrings, unfortunately. So hopefully we don't have that this year. And then we also supported a number of receptions at the museum for exhibits. We didn't do receptions all the time right at the beginning of the exhibits in order to publicize these, let other people know what's going on with that. So you see these in conjunction with, as Ms. Padberg mentioned earlier, about how she's using these exhibits within her curriculum at her school. Fiscal support. Now this is a little bit combined here, but certainly we helped with getting the schoolhouse open. Again, the state helped, the city helped, it all came together there. And we're spending money with salaries and consulting here in order to make sure that we have efficient marketing, get to a number of exhibits, as well as we're able to help with development and increase our support potential that we have out there. So now let's go on the other side. So who cares that we did this? Now, how the community benefit from it, right? Well, now the Churchill Schoolhouse is available. It was sitting there for 10 years. Now that it's available for all of us in the community to use, District 205 to use, as well as Bensonville, thanks to a lot of good work together with the two communities here. We have improved exhibits. How are they improved? One, a lot of anecdotes that say, yeah, this is really good, I like this exhibit out there, but also we had increased attendance at exhibits. So that's a good news. We have improved programs. Last year we have a summer drop-in program weekly that was sold out. Okay, that's good. That means people liked it. They didn't stop coming after the first week with this. Our foundation funded 250 kids from District 205 to come to the Elmhurst Historical Museum because District 205 cut out field trips in a lot of cases. So we want them to come to this museum. We think Elmhurst history is important. We're willing to spend money to do that kind of stuff. And then as part of thanks to your help, yourselves, and as representatives of the community, we're able to offer these free and low-cost programs, right, at the Elmhurst Historical Museum and Churchville Schoolhouse. I mean, if we had a fee on it, we might not get as many people. But in these times that we're talking about, people appreciate those kind of programs, especially when they're high quality. And Ruth Strand Outreach. What do people think about his history? Interestingly enough, the winners last year of the Ruth Strand poster contest, these are second and third graders in all the schools of Elmhurst. The one person had Wilder Mansion, one person had Old Main at Elmhurst College, and the third one you would never think of as history of Elmhurst, the gazebo on Spring Road. But that's history. So it tells you how broad history is. It's not just an old building that's all dusty, right? There's a lot to history out of here. And then lastly, we're spending some money in terms of programs because we want to drive this to be more superior, right? To enhance the programs here. And so we're going to be spending money as part of the foundation in order to help hire a programs coordinator so that we can drive a lot more out there. So hopefully you're getting a picture here. Momentum, picture of excitement, picture of a lot of hard work, and I'm hoping that we can help bring alive the mission statement of the city through enhancing the Elmhurst Historical Museum, Churchville Schoolhouse, and local history. So with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Tom. I'd like to thank Tom for his service as president on the board. I'd also like to thank the other board members who are here this evening and those who aren't here. They work very hard to support the city and the museum despite very busy personal and professional lives. They promote giving and fundraising, they attend meetings, and they encourage memberships and connect to people all over Elmhurst. Now, this was a very successful year at the Historical Museum, as Tom mentioned. We started with a busy spring filled with school groups at the museum. The Roberto Clemente traveling exhibit from the Smithsonian Institution closed late last spring. The museum organized the annual Elmhurst Museum Day in May to celebrate something that very few other communities have, and that's 4 wonderful museums, all within a short distance of one another. Our summer blockbuster exhibit about the history of magic and magicians in the Chicago area opened in June, and the previous summer's blockbuster exhibit titled The Long Drawn Out History of Comic Books was leased by the Elgin Public Library, where it was viewed by more than 200,000 people throughout the summer. And the midsummer vintage baseball game, as Tom said, attracted 500 fans to Barron's Park. The museum started a Comcast television program this year featuring interviews with Elmhurst history makers like former Mayor Abner Gannett, federal judge, and Elmhurst College alum William Bauer, Ralph and Charmaine Tellefson, Tom Myers Jr., and others. In September, many of you attended one or both of the events celebrating the completion of the restoration at Churchville Schoolhouse. And then in October, the museum opened Century City, an in-house exhibit that celebrates the 100th anniversary of incorporation of this community as a city. And we're closing out the year here with a traveling exhibit called Anne Frank, A History for Today. That's the exhibit that Katie Padberg, the teacher from Sandburg, spoke of earlier this evening. Now, along the way, over the past year, more than 3,000 volunteer hours were given at the museum. More than 1,100 school children received services. There were a number of grants, including a $50,000 grant for building repairs at the museum and a $4,000 grant from the DuPage Community Foundation. There were about 75 contributing donors, sponsors, and business partners at the museum and Heritage Foundation. More than 11,500 visitors, and, as Tom mentioned, a new membership program that's attracted more than 180 members in what seems like just a flash of an eye. Well, the museum's budget proposal for 11-12 is flat in comparison to last year. The city's portion is actually less $50,000 because of that capital grant awarded for repairs, and that's reflected in the budget on page 164 in line 8023. An extension of the city's lease of storage space for the museum collection was recently renegotiated, and the result is a decrease in this cost of 11.3%. I look forward to working with the Heritage Foundation and other community partners like our schools, like our library, like Elmhurst College and Elmhurst Park District as our partners in 2011. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Brian. Before I open up the discussion, can you tell us a little bit more about the one-room schoolhouse? How many of these are in Illinois? How many of these are on their original site that they were originally constructed on? And I know Representative Rebelletti and in the past Representative Big has been very instrumental in bringing home a lot of state dollars, but in this situation, Representative Rebelletti really brought home quite a bit of money to help us along with the city dollars. Can you elaborate a little bit?
That's correct. The schoolhouse is on its original site. It's one of the very few one-room schoolhouses in the state of Illinois that's on its original site. Many schoolhouses, as you imagine, have been moved. Our state representatives, State Representative Rebelletti and State Representative Biggins, were very supportive of our efforts with the schoolhouse. As a matter of fact, I had the opportunity to meet with State Representative Rebelletti just a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the schoolhouse and how it's now serving constituents here in Elmhurst. We're happy to have that schoolhouse available. We're gearing up as resources are available to do more and more with 205 as well as private and parochial schools here in Elmhurst. We're also doing scout programs at the schoolhouse. As a matter of fact, we had a high school group from Champaign, Illinois, visit the schoolhouse not too long ago on a field trip to the Chicago area to study German immigration.
Very good. And one of us probably remember the Churchville students that actually came out and entertained for us. That was special, and many of the volunteers got to see that actually at the one room, but we actually had them here at City Hall, and the kids were delightful. So, open it up to discussion. Questions, Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank both Brian and Tom not only for coming out, but I guess you could say in the past years I've been very critical of the Historical Museum budget in general. There's been times with capital that it was approximately $1 million with capital expenditures. And in hard and lean times, you know, you have to go back to those core services, and I myself have been watching it with a very critical eye. The reason why I wanted to speak was I have seen an incredible improvement these last couple of years. I've been very impressed with the exhibits that have been out there, the attendance at some of these exhibits, as well as the baseball games, as everything else that's been happening. So I want to give kudos where kudos are due. That, you know, good job to yourself, the staff, all the foundation members. I'm very impressed with the improvements, at least in my eyes, that I've seen over the last couple of years. The only question I have on this budget is there seems to be an uptick, again, going back to core services, in the part-time staffing dollars. Estimated this year at $105,000, going next year to $138,000 projected. Is there a plan to hire staff? And the reason why I ask this is because we've opened police positions that we need to consider, and this comes along the lines in regards to what our priorities are. Sure.
And you're referring to line 1002 on page 163?
Yes, thank you.
Right. And there is an increase there that does reflect a part-time position that's being funded by the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. As a matter of fact, it was in the budget for this year. We advertised that job. We interviewed a number of candidates. We got to the point where we actually offered the job to someone and expected it to be filled, and it wasn't filled. So this is a 18-hour-a-week position that is responsible for public programs at the museum and at the schoolhouse.
And you said that's being funded by the foundation?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. I have to echo Alderman Bram's praises, although I can say I've really never been critical of the museum. I've always been a huge supporter. But you really have brought this up to a whole new level, and I cannot thank the foundation and staff and all the volunteers enough. I think I've been involved with the museum through the society for 20-plus years, and this past year has just been remarkable. Between everything you mentioned here, it's very impressive, and I can tell you we are the envy of many other communities. Right now, a lot of communities are struggling to keep their history and their heritage active and vibrant, and it's really not happening. So I think that says a lot about Elmhurst, the people of this town, and you know, without your history, it's hard to move forward. So thank you, and I'm thrilled. I just can't believe the level that this foundation and staff has taken the museum to, and with the budget cut. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Before we go to Alderman Healy, I wanted to mention too, you know, not only we received state money, the village of Bensonville, which actually is where this entity actually resides, ran sewer and water at their cost, and we've got a nice partnership, working intergovernmentally, taking advantage of state grants. We pretty much exhausted every avenue to make this happen, and so it's kudos to staff, it's kudos to our legislators that are down there trying to bring it home for us, and also our fellow mayors that we're always trying to work together to make it happen too. So Mayor Soto from Bensonville, I have to give him credit for making that happen. So Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start with a couple of comments, and then I do have one question. First, to my comments. This is my second time going through the process. I like to think of myself as somebody who learns with experience. And last year we had a very healthy debate about how much to spend at the Historical Museum, and it went on for many hours. And that was a result of a motion I made. I've learned that there's probably a better way to handle that. So this year, rest assured, I will not be making any motions tonight. However, what I'm going to ask that we do, and I'll direct this to City Manager Borchert, is I do want to circle the Historical Museum's budget as a circle back when we get through. And here's my line of thinking. I would like to discuss this again, but I would like all of the aldermen to get some information. I've requested from Finance Director Gaston some information that I've got in front of me, but because I requested it fairly late on Friday, you have not all had a chance to see it. I'm told that it will be in your packets on Thursday. And basically what I asked staff to prepare, met with Mr. Borchert and Ms. Gaston on Friday. I went through the budget pretty extensively. I wanted to get a better handle of the numbers. And what I asked them to do was put together what I'm calling the net expenditure by the city. How much money are we funding the Historical Museum each and every year? Because if you look at the budget, and Alderman Bram's question is a great one, if you look at the budget, it looks like we're spending an incremental $30-some thousand on part-time help. That's being funded or offset by a $25,000 grant from the foundation. Elsewhere in the budget, there's a $45,000 placeholder, if you will, from the foundation, as well as a $50,000 placeholder from the state of Illinois. I believe it's the state of Illinois we're getting that grant from, the $50,000 that Mr. Berghager referenced. So what I want to know is, over the last several years, how much money have we funded to the Historical Museum? Because my actions last year had nothing to do with the museum per se. I have no desire, no intention, no will to see the operation or the activities have been so well described today, and I would agree that the momentum is there. You know, the Roberto Clemente exhibit, I think I heard more about that than any other exhibit combined. No way do I want to inhibit that. However, I am interested in knowing how much money we as a city are putting up towards the Historical Museum. You will get this information on Thursday. What that information shows me is approximately last year, the net effect of grants on the historical budget, museum budget, was $688,384. That's money that we, the city, all of us, help subsidize, if you will, the operation of the museum. This year's budget is proposed at $836,770. When you back out the foundation grants and the state grant, I come up with a net figure of $716,770. That's how much we're being asked to give to the museum or allot for the museum in the budget. That represents approximately a 4% increase over last year's expenditure. So one of the things I'm going to ask on the circle back is that we, as a council, set a ceiling of how much money we're willing to budget towards historical museum operation. And I'm not even going to suggest a number tonight. When it comes to circle back time, I probably will have a suggestion, but by that time, I would think each of us will have some idea on what that number should be. I like this approach for a couple of reasons. It gives us a certain level, it gives us a very certain amount of certainty on what the museum, we should budget for the museum each year. So that one year it's not $1 million, as Alderman Bram referenced, and the information you'll get will show that. And the next year it's not 688 or 701, that we know each and every year it's this amount. It gives the foundation and the operators of the museum a certain level, a level of certainty as to what our financial contribution will be. And if they wanted, whether it's the foundation or the museum operators want to do something above and beyond that, then they have to budget for it. So whether it's raising revenue, whether it's cutting expense here so you can add it there, it allows them to do that. I am not interested in cutting the level of funding any further. So the information you'll get shows a $688,384 contribution, budget expenditure. I don't mean to be underselling it. It's what we're budgeting or what we're spending at the museum. I'm not looking for an expense reduction on that. So the number that I might propose on circle back time will be no less than that amount. But I would like to see us put a ceiling that becomes a moving forward each year, becomes a ceiling of what we're willing to fund the Historical Museum. So that's something I would ask that staff make a note of and that we be prepared to discuss on circle back time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I appreciate you giving us the warning, the heads up, and able to review the information and be able to make some decisions here. Alderman Levin.
Well, I think I took a very careful look through the Finance Task Force and we took a very good look at all the operations of the city, and the Historical Museum was no different. On one hand, I'll say I think it was a very much of a banner year. There were some wonderful exhibits, and I saw a couple of them. In terms of your suggestion that we have a cap, I think that's what the budget is, and I don't know that, I mean, I'll wait till the numbers come out, but I think each year we have to look at it and decide what the budget's going to be for any department, including the museum, and it may be different from year to year. I'm also sensitive that when we have citizens, residents who are joining in large numbers and making contributions through the foundation, that we don't, as we used to call it in the state government business, supplant those funds by saying, well, we're going to cut back what we might otherwise do because people who are out there working are raising money to do more. It would be a complete disincentive if we were to then say, well, now we can take it off the tax base because we've got volunteers doing it. So it's a very careful balance. I would look at those numbers, but I think our budget is, this process should help lead us through that. But I don't have any particular questions.
Thank you, Alderman Levin. Alderman Rose.
Thank you, Alderman Healy. I look forward to actually seeing those numbers. But I will tell you, it is my perspective. I thought the historical museum budget last year was, I suppose eviscerated is too strong a word, but I was very concerned that they took a huge hit percentage-wise relative to others. And I'm I'm glad to hear you say you're not interested in slicing and dicing it. I'm certainly not this year. I think that if we want to have a vital organization that is committed to the history and preserving the history of this community, we can't just keep looking to the museum to say, let's slice them, let's cut them. It's easy to cut them out. If we want to do that, let's just get rid of the whole museum, which we cannot do by law anyway. So I just want to say that, well, actually we can get rid of the museum, but they have certain functions, let me just say that, that cannot be gotten rid of by law. So I'm just sensitive to what I will call shared pain, that we don't keep going back to the same well and asking the same group to share the pain. I think that we asked a lot of them last year by cutting. I'm glad to see that the foundation has learned a few things in terms of budgeting, and don't say you're going to give money before you actually do. I think you learned a lot, and I'm pleased about that. So I am heartened by Alderman Healy saying that he's not interested in slicing and dicing this, because I'm really opposed to that. I'm very opposed to that. I think that we can talk about core services, but I also think that this is, there's core and then there's core, and I think this is vital to the life of our community, and I just am not going to support large cuts to this portion of the budget. I just don't think it's warranted.
Anyone else? Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Alderman Rose. Just a quick question. And Brian, if you don't mind, if I can ask it directly to you. The one-room schoolhouse, I think it's a great addition to the museum. It's great, and the society. Do you have any commitments in 2011 for how often that will be used by organizations?
Well, it's being used right now primarily by scout groups and some school groups. Our grant from the DuPage Community Foundation will allow us to market the schoolhouse county-wide. We're working closely with the DuPage Regional Superintendent of Schools to do that at the beginning of next school year. So that will allow us to better evaluate the appeal of the schoolhouse for communities outside of Elmhurst. And we're working closely with District 205 at the same time to integrate that interpretive plan that we have at the schoolhouse into the social studies curriculum for 205. But we can still move ahead with 205, and we are moving ahead with parochial schools here in Elmhurst at the same time. And we have an agreement with Bensonville to provide the schoolhouse services for Bensonville schools. We've not had any Bensonville schools as of yet, but we're working with City Hall and the schools in Bensonville to promote that.
And what, I'm sorry, Tom, real
Just quick, Bensonville is a co-sponsor for the one-room schoolhouse relative to infrastructure. They extended the sewer and water at their expense, understanding that there would be a credit of their account, and then Bensonville entities get to use it from that deposit that they've made. So Mr. Berghager has leveraged that effort with Bensonville, and it's promising. We're still working as to the details, but it's a promising endeavor.
And I think that's fantastic. Is there any other towns? I mean, if we are one of the only schoolhouses to have this kind of showcase, if you will, of history, are we marketing outside of District 205?
Well, all of DuPage County through
All of
this
DuPage County.
grant that we received from the DuPage Community Foundation.
Okay.
And that will be our first step. There are other one-room schoolhouses in the area. Naper Settlement has a schoolhouse. The Schaumburg Park District has a schoolhouse. All of those have been moved and have lost that integrity. Part of what makes the Churchville Schoolhouse so very special, as I said, is that it's on its original location. I've had people tell me that if you stand at the back of the schoolhouse, you can almost imagine yourself in Churchville in 1870, for instance, because there's a cemetery just to the west, and just a few feet farther west are some wooded properties owned by the Forest Preserve District. And it is a special place. It's a place that's time forgot, believe it or not, in DuPage County.
I don't disagree. Follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you. And so, can you estimate how many students or how many organizations you'd like to have come through in 2011? And then, are we charging for those?
We will charge for non-Elmhurst schools. The fee will be $5 a student.
Okay.
And at this point, we have part-time staffing to do the programs at the schoolhouse. And that's 18 hours a week. I don't know the specific number that we estimated it out, but we estimated the number of school groups that we could do up there reasonably. And the school visits will be either half-day or full-day. So there are two options for visits.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Very good.
I should also mention that we've done some cooperative field trips with the Bensonville Park District. The Bensonville Park District operates the old Fisher Farmstead. It's just about a quarter-mile southwest of the schoolhouse. And we look forward to partnering with the Park District up there some more.
Yeah. The Fishers were very instrumental in us actually attaining this one-room schoolhouse. They were the actual owner, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. The Fisher family donated the property in about 1846 for the schoolhouse, and members of the Fisher family still reside in the area around the schoolhouse and have continued to be supportive in different ways.
You know, there was a little debate whether we should make it handicap accessible, and is it, you know, I sat down with Mr. Fisher, and he was very, very cooperative and wanted it to be celebrated by everybody. And I think it's just it's a great, great, unique gem that we have in our community that talk about quality of life and culture that really make us different. You had a question?
And I don't mean to interrupt, but I do have a comment. It's funny how history comes around, because you brought up the Fisher family. And this fall, the Historical Museum is participating in the community-wide commemoration of the beginning of the Civil War. And as part of that, we've booked a traveling exhibit of Civil War photographs from the George Eastman House in Rochester, New York. So we're very happy to bring that to Elmhurst. But as is the case with most traveling exhibits, we explore ways to make it more meaningful to our local community. What can we say specifically about Elmhurst with this topic? And so for the Civil War photograph exhibit, we've been able to go into the collection and retrieve a number of letters that were written during the Civil War by members of the Fisher family. Letters to their son who was serving on the battlefields, letters from another son to one of the other sons. It's a fascinating human glimpse into life during the Civil War. So we'll have the letters to share with the public. They're in German. If you can read German, you'll enjoy that. Mm-hmm. They've been translated, of course. But we're also working with the Elmhurst Artists Guild, and the Artists Guild will have artists who will create an original piece of art inspired by portions of the letters. So we're stepping back in time in a way with the letters, but coming to a contemporary interpretation through the artwork that we'll have.
Very good. Alderman York.
It's been a while since Alderman Rose spoke, but I really don't have an awful lot to add. I fully support and agree with what she said. I think it's, as I've watched the evening kind of unfold with Alderman Healy doing a little confession, if you will, here, and understanding that there are other ways to accomplish things. I'd like to commend him for looking at his way. Mr. Klein, a very retrospective look at the History Museum itself and how it does tie to the community. History and arts are an awful important part of Elmhurst, and I think over the course of time they've drawn a lot of residents and very many influential residents to this community that have made a real impact. And it's hard to measure those things, but I'm encouraged by the information that's been disclosed by everybody involved here tonight, and I look forward to receiving the information and looking at it in the vein in which it was intended. Thank you.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple follow-up points. First, Alderman Rose and I disagreed vehemently last year, and I certainly appreciate and respect Alderman Rose's passion. But I want to be very clear, because I got a lot of angry calls and letters last year. I don't want to see the museum closed. So I talk of that kind of, gets me a little nervous. No way do I want to see that happen. But I would like to point out that we took $100,000 out of the budget last year. And pretty much for the first 15 minutes or so of this presentation, we heard how great things are going and how great things have been going this year and how much momentum there has been at the museum. So while Alderman Rose backed off the term evisceration, I'm glad, I would call it more of a belt tightening, because I certainly don't think anything we did last year severely impacted their ability to deliver the cultural benefit to the community that they did. And then I also want to comment to Alderman Levin a little bit. While I certainly agree this is a budget discussion, what I will be proposing is a little stronger than that. It's budgets. You can overspend a budget, you can underspend a budget, you can carry budget numbers over the following year. I'm going to be proposing a maximum expenditure. So budget it how you want, but it's going to be, I'm going to propose that we spend X amount at the museum each year, so that they can count on that each year, so that it's not got to come into a budget discussion and worry about cuts and slashes and whatnot. I'm going to propose that we spend X amount at the museum every year. So it's not just a budget number per se. It's a fence of spending, which I know a budget is, but it's a hard cap on what we spend at the museum each and every year. So it's not just simply cutting the budget or moving budget numbers around. It's going to be it's going to be a hard number that we spend at the museum each year. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Mulliner and then Alderman Gutenkopf.
Just one quick question, and it relates to the $5 per student for school districts outside of Elmhurst. 40% of my ward sits in Salt Creek School District. They're in Elmhurst. I'm wondering if they're considered part of the Elmhurst, or if they're not considered part of Elmhurst.
Yes. 205 has credit, so to speak, because 205 was the previous owner of the schoolhouse, and part of the agreement between District 205 and the city was to provide the schoolhouse free of charge to 205. We can certainly look at the Salt Creek District. There are residents of Elmhurst who attend Salt Creek. Is that correct?
Follow-up, are you charging parochial schools in Elmhurst? Do you charge the parochial schools in Elmhurst?
No, all Elmhurst schools. So, actually, that answers your question. I'm sorry.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Well, I don't want to get into the nuances of which Elmhurst residents go to which schools, but I do want to comment on something that Alderman Healy said, because I was going to say I'm not comfortable. I'm going to change that. I'm very uncomfortable with the notion that as a body we would take a particular department, any department, the Public Works Department, the Fire Department, the Finance Department, the IT Department, and arbitrarily determine that any particular year was the year in which we cap the spending of that department. I think that makes some assumptions about how we allocate funds and about the needs of those departments that I'm not comfortable making. If we decided that this was the year we capped IT, what's to say that next year we don't have a big IT expense that we hadn't anticipated or that would make us function more efficiently? It makes us look at this piece of city operations differently than other pieces of city operation, and I don't think that's appropriate. So I do appreciate why you're proposing a cap. I don't think we need to wait until our next budget discussion to talk about it, because this is a philosophical discussion about whether or not we should be doing it, not exactly what the number is. And I would pick up on what Alderman Levin said, that once we start to think that just because a particular entity is successful with grant funding or with seeking private donations to operate, it doesn't mean that we can step back from our long-term historical obligation to provide that service to the citizens. And I can't support doing that. I think that the museum has shown a strong year in spite of the fact that they operated in a very throttled way. I'm intimately familiar with what they've been able to do despite this, and I know that had we not cut that $100,000 out of the budget, we would have seen even greater success. We would have seen educational programs overseen by a full-time staff person who would have had the one-room schoolhouse operating at full capacity this year instead of waiting until next year. And we would have seen collections care, something that is a little transparent to all of us, but something that's really critical to operating a museum like this, elevated to an even higher level. So we don't cut grants, we don't cut other departments' budgets based on grants they get. I don't think we should cut the museum or cap the museum based on their ability to fundraise.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board that's behind there, that's always working hard and volunteering their time, and is very passionate about the culture and the quality of life in our community. Val Stewart, I see Kathy Jordan back there, Mrs. Hodges, Mrs. Braun, all of the fine commissioners that make our museum what it is. So, thank you. All right. I think we're wrapping up. Anything else, Mr. Borchard?
Well, Don Storino has been waiting real patiently. You want to?
Mr. Storino?
Want to do?
Absolutely.
Oh,
We're on a roll.
Actually, we got the visitor tourism part, which is not part of what Mr. Klein is helping Mr. Bergiger with. We could finish all of Brian's budget, which would be the museum tourism area.
Sure.
And maybe at least begin a discussion of legal, make a little progress beyond library and museum. But the visitor tourism is pages 175, 176, and again, we negotiated really a negotiated partnership with the DuPage group, and we anticipate that that will be extended for another year. And again, that significantly leverages our marketing programs with the DuPage group, which solicits help from the state. It's worked out very well and an advantage to Elmhurst. Not much has changed, but any questions?
Very good. Any questions? Alderman Pezza?
Thank you. I guess I should know more about this, but I'm not sure that I know exactly what this title or this position encompasses. I know a little bit about it, but can you just touch a little bit more on exactly what this involves?
It's part-time. Marlene Tegmeyer?
Sure. This is a part-time position that's been with the city perhaps a dozen years or more. And the position is charged with helping to generate overnight stays and day trips to Elmhurst by visitors. The position is 20 hours a week and coordinates a visitor tourism advisory committee made up of representatives from the hotels, from the business community, and from the attractions here in Elmhurst. And the The expense of the department, more or less, is shown on line 6045, Public Information Program. The $25,000 is for ad placement and production in various publications that are done. And we're able to track some of those through return cards. Some of those are geared for overnight visitors, for smaller meeting planners. Others are geared particularly to a summer family audience. For instance, there's a Chicago Parent ad that's done each year, and Oakley's Guide each year. Oakley's and Chicago Parents are geared for parents.
That's through DuPage, the tourism group, correct? And we get like co-opt out. We kind of join forces with all the communities, and we get a pretty good value with that. I know we negotiated. City Manager Borchert and myself negotiated a much lower rate than normal, that was something that we had stopped doing for a while, but actually reinstated as a way to increase our food and beverage tax and generate some hotel motel tax, et cetera. So it's promoting the community.
Just to follow up.
Yeah.
Do we have a way to track what this actually brings back to the community?
There's direct tracking on some of the ads through a reply card that's returned to the office, and I can get the numbers on this past year that have been returned. Other tracking is anecdotal. For instance, I mentioned smaller meeting planners for smaller meetings. Our hotels are geared for those types of meetings as opposed to larger conventions or larger meetings. So working directly with the hotels, we're able to track that to a large degree.
Chairman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to concur again with Alderman Pezza. I don't know and also suggest that maybe this area should have an ROI type of quotation type of thing. It'd be interesting to see what we're getting for the amount of money that we're spending. You know, how many people are being attracted to come to Elmhurst and spend some time here and spend some money, more importantly. I don't know if that's possible because it's probably spread almost similarly to the IT budget, right? It's all over the budget, but how people actually spend money could be in different areas of the budget. So it'd be interesting to track, though, if it's possible. City Manager Borchert, I'd like to suggest that.
Yeah, it's a good point. Real quick, too, are we cross-selling this with the museums as well, too, to try to promote museum visits and travel, et cetera? Is that...
Yes.
It is.
One of the benefits is that the city's effort is promoting and marketing the entire city. It promotes Elmhurst as a overnight stay. It promotes Elmhurst as a day trip destination. And so, for instance, on a number of these ads that are done, the Visitor Tourism Office will buy a quarter page or a half page and then provide an opportunity for an attraction or the hotels to partner on the ad and either pay for part of it or have a full page, a bigger splash for Elmhurst, for instance. And the Visitor Tourism Advisory Committee meets monthly here in City Hall. It's an exchange of information. It's an opportunity to also plan some cooperative events. I know the 150th anniversary of the Civil War commemoration was planned somewhat through the Visitor Tourism Group.
Yeah, very good. You know, I know with these type of advertisements, being in the advertising business, it's sometimes hard to track magazines or periodicals, et cetera, but maybe food and beverage taxes, see how we're doing there, hotel, motel visits, how we're doing there, et cetera. Might be general ways to kind of gauge, and I know I believe our food and beverage taxes are going up from my last look at those, so it might be a way to kind of give a little bit of an indication as if it's working or not. And this is something that we just reactivated last year because it was something we cut out, I believe, what, 3 years in a row? City Manager Borchard?
But you're talking about the membership with the DuPage Group?
Yeah, membership and doing the advertising.
Yeah, the membership with the DuPage was reinitiated last year,
Right.
proposed to continue next year. Absent the DuPage membership, Elmhurst did its own marketing, but it's much more effective leverage through the DuPage Group.
You get a better buy-in ads. And
Yes.
Exactly, okay.
I would,
Brown.
I would be remiss to not mention, it's noted, but we would point out that not part of really anything that Mr. Berghager directly controls, but embedded in this area of the budget are the community grants program, which is proposed to be at about what it was last year as a result of the pretty flat hotel motel tax revenues.
Very good. Alderman Brown?
Thank you. Just a curiosity question, actually, on page 175, line item 6007, under other expenses. Everything fluctuates over time, and for whatever reason, holiday decorations don't seem to increase in cost, but going back 4 or 5 years now. How do we maintain an exact $24,000 expenditure on this every single year?
Well, the folks that are processing the applications explain that their costs go up, but the city's grants to them, we've maintained flat because of the city's revenues being flat. So there's a kind of a fixed payment that the city finances, the chamber that assists with the Spring Road and the South York and the North York and the York and Villette program, and then the city finances a part of the city center's lighting program. And in both cases, those commercial neighborhoods pay the difference, and in the central business district area, the city center pays the difference.
Thank you.
Okay. That holds true with even like Metropolitan Family Services and some of our other grant providers that we give dollars to provide counseling and other things. We haven't cut those, but we just maintain them. We haven't increased those grants, correct? Okay. Anybody else? Alderman York.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, you know, I think this program is vitally important. I'm excited to see the membership in the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau reinstated. I've had the opportunity to watch Marlene do a lot of her work in city center meetings and other meetings that I attend, and she's held it together really well without this. She's a dynamo. She gets things done, but I think to Alderman Wagner's concerns and some others too, this is a very, very difficult item to measure tangibly. But I think we are starting to see an uptick in things, and I just think this is really key to economic development in the city of Elmhurst, and I'd be afraid to see it suffer any consequences of a reduced budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And Marlene is the Energizer Bunny, I call her. She never stops. She's a good lady. And a part-time contract worker, I believe, that's doing a great job. So always got a great smile and a great attitude as well. Loves Elmhurst. Anybody else? Okay, next.
If we could maybe press on, I know police have been patiently waiting. If maybe suggest if we could try to get legal and police done. Legal is 166, 167. Mr. Storino is here. This is something that we've talked about on a number of occasions. It's driven by the issues that the city needs to respond to. Mr. Storino has kept his flat wholesale rate for services as it was a couple of years ago. We anticipate need for legal services, and the City Council is a part of authorizing those times to be expended on services. Questions for Mr. Storino?
Alderman Brown.
Actually, not for Mr. Storino, but maybe, oh man, it's getting late, Director Gaston. This summary here, is this the overall expenditures for all of our attorney costs over this past fiscal year and proposed for the following year? In past, we've requested and received an overall summary of professional services, which would include attorney services. Do we have that in this packet? And if not, will we be able to get something like that?
The answer is, in the past, we have not provided that information. We have talked about that because legal fees, we will charge where the expense happens, for instance, in the TIFs. When you look at the TIF lines, it'll say professional services, and if there is work being done in a particular TIF, we will charge the legal fees to that particular TIF. Other than legal fees going to the TIFs, these are the legal fees. So the only other place in the city's budget that you would see legal fees would be in those three areas. And really, it's going to be, at this point, very small in TIF 2 and TIF 3, more in the downtown. As you know, we're doing more in the downtown. We have the Hahn Street project. We have the Addison Street project beginning to come on. Pardon me. If it comes to, the city manager is reminding me, when we do have a bond sale, there would be costs involved. But those would be paid for out of the bond costs.
Thank you.
I beg your pardon, the bond proceeds.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Where would the cost, and I have to assume they'd be incremental costs, where would those costs be for local adjudication? Because that was a program that's recently started that I know Attorney Strino has designated as a local adjudicator. I don't see an offsetting increase as I might have expected.
Those costs, as far as where we are budgeting them, those costs are going to be in line 3036. And we would probably, this is a gut feel saying the costs involved are in the neighborhood and annually probably 8 to 10,000. That may be a little high.
So 8 to 10,000 is a lot of money, but in this, it's negligible.
Right, right. So you're right. It is always tough. I say this every year. Those of you who have been here before have heard me say this every year about the legal budget. It is the hardest department to budget because I can plan in Public Works maybe to pave streets, but I can't plan on who's going to sue us and what that's going to cost the city. So it is the hardest one to try and come up with. You'll see the other thing that's hard right now, we have 3 unions that we're going to be negotiating with. 2 we already are. Really, 1 we are. Another 2 we're going to be starting. So we're really going to be dealing with 3 union negotiations at the same time. So that labor line is probably going to even be higher than what I budgeted here.
The local adjudication, however, to add to Alderman Healy's, the answer to Alderman Healy's question, the fees that are all now a credit to the city and don't get taken apart by the county through the county process, local field court now in Elmhurst, local adjudication, city pays the expenses, but city reaps all of the fine revenue, and it's on the positive side.
Very good. Alderman Levin.
You know, I appreciate what you're saying, Director Gaston, about how you budget. I guess I don't quite understand how these all break out. The prosecuting attorney costs have gone up from 2008 about 60%, and I don't know how to distinguish the difference between what our local adjudication is and our prosecuting attorney. And I just wondered, maybe Mr. Storino, whoever could sort of explain how you fall into one budget or the other.
I think what, in terms of the expense, I think what Marilyn was saying was that it's in the general corporate line, and it's the expenses, I think, in the neighborhood of exactly what Marilyn said. It's about $8,000. We did adjudicate for a short period of time while we got the program implemented, developing the program, and another young man has taken over, and he is now our adjudicator. On the positive side, as both Tom and Marilyn have said, that's been, I think, a very positive thing for the city, both financially and efficiency-wise, because we are doing all of that right here locally, and we're keeping all the fines. It's real positive. So I probably couldn't give you, Alderman, I don't know the exact revenue number, but I know it's substantially more than the $8,000 to $10,000 that's included in line 3036. So the amount that is allocated for an adjudicator, I think I'm pretty correct, and Maryland is, that it's about $8,000 to $10,000.
But the prosecuting attorney is a separate line from the adjudicator. I'm
Correct.
just wondering why our costs are we collecting more fines because we're doing more prosecutions, or is there more ordinance violations that would lead to that kind of increase?
We are, I'm not the prosecuting attorney, but the prosecuting attorney, who does a really outstanding job, did ask for, effective in May, I think a very reasonable increase in his fees, his hourly rate. I think his hourly rate is going to $155 an hour from $140 an hour. And there is more prosecution work because he does prosecute these adjudications. So you would see, a little spike in terms of the amount of work, the additional work he has to do because he is prosecuting the adjudications here. It's another time he has to be here, I guess is the best way to say it.
May I ask a couple more questions? Do we track the number of fines that we get so that if we see we're doing more prosecutions, I know you're not prosecuting just to get money, but do we track what's coming out of local adjudications or what's happening out of prosecutions?
Okay. Yeah, Marilyn is saying that we can. We haven't yet.
But it's not, there's nothing in here that I saw.
No, there's nothing in there that could show you that, but we could track the revenue.
All right, and I think that would be an idea because we're getting bigger expenses, and if we're getting money taken in, that would be helpful to know. And the last thing I think everyone probably knows, maybe except me, is what does defensive liquor mean? I mean, it might be a good thing to defend, but,
What is, say that again?
Defense liquor?
Oh, sure. Just to backtrack one last time, I think it'll be, when we can start tracking and providing you with the data with the revenue, it's going to be positive, adjudication-wise. You're going to see it, and it's going to be very positive from the city, from the city's perspective. From a liquor license standpoint, the police department and the liquor commissioner, who happens to be the mayor, have been aggressive in holding our liquor establishments' responsibilities, accountable. And so Mayor DeCiani takes a very strong approach in terms of those liquor establishments that aren't conducting themselves in the proper manner. And we've had a few instances where we have had to conduct liquor hearings and really, frankly, hold people's feet to the fire. And we're kind of proud of the fact that we're being aggressive and pursuing, both from a police standpoint and a liquor enforcement standpoint, those things.
I would respectfully suggest that it's a misnomer. We're not defending, but we're prosecuting liquor prosecution.
Correct.
Okay,
You're correct.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ellen.
And I'm aware in most cases, if found guilty, there's a fee which covers court costs, the prosecution costs, the attorney's fees, and then sometimes a penalty on top of that.
I've been known to be pretty tough, so fees typically go along with the prosecution.
Yeah, that's. I appreciate Senator Borchard mentioning that. The modus operandi is to fine in the nature that the attorney's fees cost to prosecute the offense are included in the fine.
Anybody else? Questions? Discussion? Okay. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we recognize certainly your evening, your time. We'd like to do the police, but it's 10:30.
Everybody okay? You want to get the police done real quick, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, consensus is, let's do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Chief Neubauer?
City Attorney Storino, we thank you for all your hard work, and you're doing a terrific job.
Pages 133 through 136. no new programs actually beginning to
33.
move and fill some vacant positions. We're going to still maintain a vacant spot, and Chief Newbar will provide those highlights.
Thank you. Once again, the police department had a very busy year, and we had some vacancies. We have an authorized strength of 70 police officers, and we've been working with 67 police officers, and we had the tragic loss of an officer in an accident. And we generally have 1 or 2 officers on some various stage of rehabilitation from injuries, so it has been a very, very tough year for staffing on the police department. During the course of the year, calls for service went up 2.5% in the area of 53,000 calls. So the officers that we have on the street are working very, very hard. In our budget, we propose to add 2 officers, 2 full-time officers, which would still leave 2 dark positions for civilians, full-time civilian positions, and some part-time police positions. What we'd like to do is to be able to staff some of our units. The detective unit is working short 1 officer, and the cop unit, which many of you call me with drug house information or neighborhood disturbance information, chronic problems, and those are the officers that do that. And when we pull them off to work uniform, these things aren't getting done. So we would certainly like to staff that. As you talked about the adjudication process, which has been very successful for us, I'm happy to report we have done 11 months of administrative tows. That's the main portion of the adjudication process, and these are vehicles that we would tow anyways. These are people who should not be driving. They're safety hazards to the community. We tow them for drunk driving, suspended driver's license, revoked driver's license, and unlicensed driving or never licensed. I think we're all in agreement these people shouldn't be driving and we should tow them. What administrative tows do, we've got to bring them to the station anyways, and we have to tow their cars. We put a $500 bond on each car, and then it goes through an administrative process. To date, we've done this 11 months. We've towed 795 cars, have about a 90% pay on that $500. Some of the cars people never claim, and they get junked. And once in a while, an administrator will find we didn't have cause to tow the car, and of course, the person will get their money refunded. So that has been very successful, probably to the tune of about $390,000 just in 11 months. So once again, the officers have been working very, very hard. This is an additional process. It's very complicated. It's very time-consuming, but they've done a great job. This year, we've also eliminated the animal control officer and found some alternatives for people with animal problems, and I have not received any complaints on the lack of animal control because people have an alternative when they have these animals in their property. We reduced 14 noontime school crossings safely. Once again, that went off seamlessly at the beginning of the year, and the parents and the schools have all adapted to that, and some savings for the community. We have taken one of our detectives and assigned him to a suburban drug enforcement agency task force. He works in the city of Chicago and works on the heroin issue that has been affecting our community. So we have an Elmhurst officer that does work with the DEA on those kinds of issues. So we've been able to take one of our local officers to help, which what I perceive to be as a local problem. And that has been a very successful program. We continue to work countywide for shared services. When there's a major crime, we work with the Major Crime Task Force. They've been to our community to help us when we've had major crimes. This year, we anticipate to get our new radio system, Starcom 21, up and running. That will replace our, actually countywide, the defunct police and fire radio system now will be replaced with a new digital radio system, which is long overdue. That should get up and running. And also, we anticipate sending some officers for training for truck enforcement. Many of you have told me you have concerns from your constituents with truck traffic that seems to be out of control in some neighborhoods, and it's a specialized enforcement group, and we will have officers that are trained to doing that. So we would like to get our staffing up and be able to continue what we're doing in some of these other programs and move forward. I'd like to thank the men and women of the police department. Once again, it was a very difficult year. They worked extremely tough extremely hard. When we have these shortages of staffing, that means that personal time that you'd like to take is often denied. If you have a personal day you'd like to take on Saturday night for a family event, if we're at minimum staffing, that gets denied. So these pressures take their toll over the long term. So that is the highlights in a nutshell.
Again, the staffing, however, would state again, would go back to a previously authorized level that's actually one less than what the municipal code provides as a staffing level.
Very good, very good. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'm fully in support of adding 2 officers. The questions and comments I get from people are always looking for more, not less, when it comes to enforcement issues, problems in the neighborhood, what have you. So I'm fully in support of adding 2 uniformed officers. The question I have, though, Chief, you made a comment about animal control and not receiving additional complaints. I think I speak for most of us when I say that I think we as a group of aldermen, I know I have gotten more complaints, especially about the striped little friends running around. Got a question on page 23, and it's a City of Elmhurst personnel summary. Under police, under the civilian heading, animal control for 2010, 2011, as budgeted, nothing, but actual 3/4/11, it says 1. Do we still have a animal control person running around?
Unfortunately, that's a typographical error.
Okay.
That is incorrect, but the 9 should be 10, correct, Tom? The top line, the service officers, that's 9, that should be 10.
Okay, but those people, those service officers, do not respond to animal control unless it's a dangerous situation, but they won't respond to skunks or raccoons unless they're a problem.
Right. We still respond to stray dogs and stray cats, and we'll reunite someone's golden retriever with them and those types of things. But once again, with the animal control, this was for people who had chronic problems on their property, such as if you have a plumbing problem, the city doesn't come and do plumbing on private property. These are private property issues. We've provided direction, guidance for people on the internet. We've got a preferred vendor who has special pricing for Elmhurst residents who can come and help people with those, or they're free to go to the yellow pages and get what animal control they need. We also found that many chronic problems are because people have issues with their property that they don't correct, and so it's a recurring problem.
Follow up then, just along the animal control line, back to the budget on page 134, 421.60.01. There is a estimated $10,000 expenditure for animal control this year, a budgeted $7,000 for next year. What is that?
That's we don't have a kennel. If we get a stray dog, we take it to a vet, because having a kennel is a very intricate licensing with Department of Agriculture. So those are for those costs to house animals. We try to get that back if we locate the owner, but many times we don't. Then the animal goes to the county, and the county charges us also.
Thank you. Then just one last comment, and this is more to city staff, I think. I think we need to do a better job of publicizing the preferred vendor. So whether that includes a drop in the next utility mailing, especially now that the especially little striped guys are starting to come out in force, I think the more we do to get the word out that we do have a preferred vendor with preferred rates that will come and deal with that problem, I think we'll be better off. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A comment and a question. First, a comment. I wholeheartedly agree with Alderman Healy. Just this week, I've received 2 calls, as he affectionately called it, our striped little friends. So I think that the issue is very prevalent and out there. The question is in regards to, and I again agree with Alderman Healy, I think restoring, I don't want to say adding, restoring the 2 officers up to normal levels, I'll call it, is something I'm 100% for. But the cost, it seems like, was there promotions involved as well? Because it went from full-time to $6,706,000 to projected at $6,970,000, an increase of $260-something odd thousand. Was that just the 2 new positions, or were there additional changes?
I believe that there is indications that there could possibly be raises through the course of the year and things like that, so to be determined at a later date. But no, those positions generally with benefits and salary run about $100,000 for a new employee.
Okay, yeah, my reference was just salaries,
Yeah.
strictly, nothing about the benefits. All right, so this would include the positions and potential raises. Thank you.
Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. A question for Chief. The $390,000 that we've received from the administrative tows, I know there are other items where when you receive revenue, you can only use them for certain things. Is this 390 limited as to what that money can be
No, that's
used
general revenue. There's no
It's general.
limitations on that.
So are we going to see a reflection of that in this budget, or are we seeing it, or where would we see it?
It's a revenue item in general fund under, Marilyn's going to the pie chart, or?
You'll see on page 91, at the top, 331. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm saying the wrong line. I just had it here. I'm sorry.
I know on page 88, it's part of the license, permits, and fees, orange piece of the pie.
I'm sorry, page 92 at the top. 3510900 administrative tow. We have it in there, an estimate of $330,000. That was an estimate that we did, a month ago when we put this together. So I would go with the chief's number. He's closer to that at this point. So this is one where we're showing it. This is a pure revenue, so we're showing it on a revenue line item. It's not an offset where we have a revenue that we're offsetting a specific cost.
Correct.
This is just new revenue.
Very good. Alderman Levin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have about 3 or 4 questions. First one, just for my own edification here, there's a line on page 133, 110, 50, 34, 21, 2011, and the following line, employee contribution to property tax and to replacement tax. I'm not sure I understand what that means.
That's actually, the employer contribution to property tax is the tax levy. That's the amount that the city has levied for the actuarially determined amount that the city must contribute to the police pension fund.
And the replacement tax as well?
Replacement tax as well.
All right, thank you. The second question is, if the budget passes for hiring of 2 officers, 1 officer, whatever, at what point do we make a decision about whether those positions are actually filled? In other words, specifically, does it come back to the council or not?
Past practice, a good question, Alderman Levin. Past practice has been with the operation departments, if the council approves in the budget and there's not a hiring freeze that the council would otherwise say to the city manager, if you got a vacant position, come to us before you would replace a position that goes dark or is vacant. Absent that, these 2 positions would be, as Alderman, I think Bram said, word preference would be reestablish as opposed to add. These positions went dark. We kept them dark. The budget was prepared initially with the fingers crossed and hope that some of these dark positions could be filled and still provide a contribution to fund balance, working cash fund balance, and not require revenues that would be judged to be overly burdensome. So, make a long story short, the staff will follow your direction as a council. It would be my understanding of past practice that if approved, these positions would be then city manager authorized to the police chief to work with the police and fire commission to find 2 qualified candidates and fill these positions that went dark, which would be unlike the assistant city manager, which you haven't talked about. We haven't actually had an assistant city manager for 25 years. There needs to be an evaluation of that position. That's a circled back item we'll talk about next week, I anticipate, again, but if approved, that would be visited again by the city council. These 2 positions, if you would approve it, it would be my understanding you would want the city manager and the police chief and the police fire commission to take steps to properly fill them at a reasonably prompt fashion.
All right.
Can I add also that if we decided today that we wanted to fill these positions, it's over 6 months till we let them go out by themselves on a squad car. They have basic training. They come back, they have field training, so it's very technical. It's a long time till they're out there providing any positive service for the city on their own. So
That's when they get to put the bullets in the gun, right?
there you go.
Right. Under the grant line, I know that we've budgeted $80,000 current year, but we didn't really receive any grants according to this. Is there a reason to believe that next year we would be successful in getting something like $80,000 in grants?
We have the grants. This is a placeholder in the budget. The money's expended through overtime for most of these grants. It's through the overtime budget. So it's just a placeholder. It's really reflected out of the overtime budget that it's spent.
So this whole line is overtime?
It would be, yes, for most. Some of it's commodities, but most of it's overtime.
All right. The last question then is other services. I see that goes up or down. That's what I thought was maybe overtime, but can you tell me what that?
No,
line
the
would
other services on page 133, line 3098.
Right.
That went up this year. That's maintenance contracts for our computers, the MDTs. That's an expensive contract. We also this year got a new fee. We have a computerized records service called NetRMS. The ETSB out at the county paid for the maintenance contract on that. Until this year, the state's attorney in an opinion letter said that that's an inappropriate funding for the ETSB board, so each community has to pay by the number of users they have. So that's going to be a new $15,000 fee. And then it's our other maintenance contracts and things like LexisNexis and those types of items. So,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Chief, real quick, what would you say with the 6 months of academy and training, because we're paying those officers while they're doing that, what would you say the cost would be when you figure our, what does it cost to get a guy actually on the street before he actually starts? 100,000? Is it 50,000? Is it?
no, I believe there's salaries in the low 60s to start out with, and then equipment, et cetera, is $3,000 or $4,000. The police academy's $3,000 or $4,000. Some of that's reimbursable, and then they're with field training officers, so that all adds up.
Right. Okay. Would it be fair with Benny's and field FTO? Is it FTO almost a year, or is it actually 6 months?
They're 26 weeks, 14 weeks with an FTO.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
10 weeks in the academy.
Okay.
So it all adds up.
Right. Okay. Very good. Okay. Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is either for Marilyn or Chief Neubauer. I can see the increase for the 2 officers in 2011, 2012, and then I'm just curious, is that a lower number? I guess what I'm asking is why are we going even higher in 2012, 2013? Part of that, I would assume, is full salaries finally coming into play if those people actually get hired. Then the other question I have is there, in addition to these 2 additional officers, is the hope for more in the following year?
No, there's no anticipation for any more full-time. Did Marilyn have a comment on the rest? We will start negotiating the union contract very shortly.
So that's no increase a year out after this year? No staff?
No staffing, no.
Okay, and then could you just recap, I know that we've talked in the past a little bit about police presence in our schools, and certainly when, the very lean times the last couple of years, we were concerned about that. Can you just talk a little bit about what our police presence is at our schools?
Right, the school resource officers, at one time we had 3 school resource officers, 2 being at York High School and 1 in the middle schools. We now have just 2 full-time school resource officers, 1 at the middle school, 1 at York High School. And then they all have assignments at every other school. Every school is assigned one of these officers if they have a problem. And to date, they've been able to maintain what they need to maintain, and so we anticipate just continuing with 2 for the time being.
We had 3 at one point?
We did have 3 at one point.
Down to 2.
Mhm.
And these increases would not change that?
No, they would not.
Okay, thank you.
One last question for me. Our part-time department, they are full academy trained and they qualify just like our full-time guys do?
They go to a separate part-time police academy. It's different, a little different than a full-time police academy, but they're certified police officers in the state of Illinois.
Okay.
By law, they can be used to supplement, not supplant, full-time police.
And they also shoot every month. They qualify just like our full-timers do?
Oh, sure, they go through all the training that we go through. We just had annual training, and they go through the first aid and AED, et cetera, all that.
Okay, very good. We've got 12, roughly?
We have authorized 15. Right now, we have 10. We have 1 that's going to retire, so we're going to see if we can hire 1 or 2. It's very difficult to find someone who will go through all that training and be able to fit the bill for that job. So if we can snag a couple candidates, we will.
Are they FTO trained and everything? Are they
Right, they have a different FTO program which concentrates on their major jobs, which is patrolling the parks, downtown area, some of these supplemental type duties.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions? Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Neubauer. Thanks, Deputy Chief Benico and Deputy Chief Buens. You always do a great job, and we appreciate all your hard work.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The decision on how it works, are we going to be discussing the 1 or 2 officers later, or is that, do we have to circle back on that, or is that just part of the budget as we would pass it?
Well, it sounds like, we'd approve the fence, and then we'd let staff decide when to reinstate and when to make that happen, unless there's a circumstance that we feel different on. But in general, they're positions that are dark right now, but we'd like to reopen. We'd probably leave that to the city manager and the chief, but unless we feel it's something that's really pressing that we want to institute immediately. Okay? Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Thank you. Anything else? Are we done for the night?
I think that's good for tonight. Thank you very much. We got circle back items, and Ms. Gass will provide another agenda for the packet Thursday for committee meetings. It's 7, but we'll target a committee of the whole meeting at 8 for next Monday night.
Very good. Very good. Anybody make a motion to adjourn, please? Alderman. Question. I'm sorry, Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Last week during the discussion, I know we noted several questions that we had that staff said they would get back to us on. When can we expect to see, could we get that before next week, the responses?
The circled items, I don't know if we've got information we'll put in the packet on Thursday, but we'll be prepared to review them, to talk to them. We've got our circled back items next
Both
week.
from last week and this week?
Most of them, actually, I'm not sure what staff would come back with. For instance, one Alderman Graham circled was the sidewalk improvements. So it's more a discussion of the council, do you want to put that back in or do you not, and at what amount? So to the extent there's anything that staff can provide, we will. But a lot of it, I think, was coming back for your own discussion.
Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the expectation next week is we will finish what we didn't finish tonight. Are there any more departments we need to hit? Or is it finish up what we didn't tonight, circle backs, and then we're done?
Right.
Yeah, the agenda you have for this evening would have finished a review of the budget. We do have, as Alderman Pezza reported the circle back items and any final questions or concerns to go over.
Okay. Alderman Brown.
Yeah, those statements actually bring up a question that I have as well. We deferred discussion about the Capitol previously, and I thought we were going to discuss it during this time frame.
Ms. Gaston?
Right. There is confusion, I think, every year on this, and I will endeavor to make it more clear. We do have a 5-year budget. We take the first 2 years of the 5-year capital budget and incorporate them in the operating budget that we are reviewing right now. We're not looking, our plan was not to look at capital projects separately. As we go through the departments, that's when, I mean, there have been some questions on certain lines. What's in this line? It was equipment purchases of that nature. So the intent was, as we're going through these departments, ask your questions about capital, because it's not the plan to go back and look just at capital, because capital is in everybody's budget. So that's the plan. That's always been the plan. So if the council wants to do it differently, then, but that's not how we have set anything up.
Right.
It is as you are going through. If we went through any public works where most of it is, or next week we'll go through municipal utility, the capital lines are in every single department's budget. If you have a question as we're going through that department's budget, please ask your questions about capital at that time.
Very good. Then, with that said, then I'll bring those questions to the next.
Then, yes, if there's something we missed, certainly by something that a department we've already gone by, bring those back, because it's not a matter of wanting to avoid that, but that was, as we're in the department, that's when we want to talk about it.
And Alderman, if you would like to confer with staff in between then, you're more than welcome to, and highly encouraged, and try to get us that information ahead of time so we can have a heads up as well, too. So, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley, Alderman Leader with a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.